David, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. You started in this role as the head of marketing in November, I believe it was, of last year. You just came off the panel. Would love to hear kind of what your thoughts are just around in this new role. You've been with Wilson for a couple of years.
Yeah.
What are you looking to kind of get done in the next year?
Yeah, so I transitioned from a very partnership-specific role to a much broader marketing role now within team sports. So team sports at Wilson is comprised of basketball, football, soccer, and volleyball. So I'm essentially leading the team that's managing marketing end-to-end for all of those sports. So everything from brand marketing and storytelling to product marketing, collaborating a lot with our product teams. Also a ton of collaboration with our commercial side of the house, who's leading a lot of our big relationships with key retailers, Dick's, Target, Walmart, et cetera. So making sure we're prioritizing the conversion side of the house too, in addition to all the other metrics that we sort of prioritize across social, digital, linear, et cetera.
Very cool.
Yeah.
You guys are a very iconic brand when it comes to the NFL. I think you've been around as the official ball sponsor since the 40s.
Yeah.
Talk to me about how you guys are activating this year and anything unique or new or different for the Super Bowl.
So specific to the NFL, we've been a partner of the league since 1941. And we have been producing every official NFL football since then. And obviously 41 predates the Super Bowl. This is Super Bowl 59, so it is also our 59th Super Bowl with the NFL, which is special. We make all of the official NFL footballs by hand with craftsmen and women in our factory in Ada, Ohio. So we've been a part of that community since 1955, and we unveiled a brand new state-of-the-art facility last year. So we are prioritizing trying to increase production as much as possible from that factory. But a really special part of our activation here at the Super Bowl is that we bring a truncated version of the factory experience that we have in Ohio to wherever the Super Bowl is. So we've brought it here in New Orleans. We're positioned over at Super Bowl Experience at the Convention Center. And fans can walk up and get to actually see how a real football is made, starting from piece of leather and how that turns into a full football. And fans can choose to be a part of that experience if they'd like and work hand in hand with our craftsmen and women to design their own football. Or they can purchase a Super Bowl ball, or if they're a fan of a particular team, we've got a ton of team product as well. So just a really well-rounded and special, unique experience for fans.
Very cool. Yeah. It's probably the experiential marketing of all experiential marketing events to be involved in, right?
Yeah.
But talking a little bit earlier about all the different sports that you guys are a part of, right? Yeah. Between golf and volleyball and basketball and whatnot, pivoting from football a bit, which is a much more, I think we could call like a general market type sport, into more of kind of those niche sports around, say, you guys are spending, primarily on the TV side and things like volleyball and golf. Talk to me about how you think about the kind of general market aspects of your marketing mix versus more of those kind of niche, diehard type audiences that need those kinds of products from you oftentimes.
Sure. And we were talking about it before. I mean, if we want people to buy a volleyball or a soccer ball or basketballs, tennis products, et cetera, we know we have to market to those players and fans in particular. And we're trying to reach them in the channels in which they are. So social media is a huge investment for us, a lot of digital tactics. We, through our league partnerships, and it's a huge benefit of having a lot of these league deals, is that we have built-in media plans essentially with the leagues. So we get some pretty prime placement across NBA.com, NFL.com, across the USTA or Roland Garros or any other AVP from a volleyball side. And so the majority of the way that we think about promoting at least licensed products from a partnership perspective is through those channels, because we know that's where folks are, right? And to your point about linear, if you're a golfer or you're just a fan of the PGA, you're probably watching the Golf Channel a lot, right? And so we're trying to reach you on those channels because we know that that's where you are. But another interesting aspect to it, and what we were discussing was, we don't want to be so tactical or focused on you're a golfer, you only want golf content, because you and I both play golf, I'm sure. Doesn't mean we don't like the NFL or the NBA, or doesn't mean we don't play pickup basketball with our friends on Tuesday nights or whatever it is. So there is an appetite and demand for that cross-sell and multi-sport affinity. And so we want to make sure us as a brand who makes products across all of those different sports and segments, we are prioritizing the ways in which we reach those people with products that we think they will like. And based on the data, they came to Wilson.com for a baseball glove and ended up buying a basketball. That says something, right? And so we need to act on that data, and it's how we fuel our marketing mix.
Very cool. Yeah. Tearing my MCL last year caused me to forego more of my basketball and my volleyball, and much more into my golf.
You and me both. Yeah.
But along those lines too, when you think about the specific audiences you're trying to go after within sports, right? It's an endemic audience for you all.
Yeah.
We were talking a little bit about this earlier. Like, it's so difficult to stay ahead of trends in general in marketing. But even within just kind of the microcosm of sports, you've got young audiences that are in many cases, they've got more choice than ever in how they engage with different leagues or different teams, right? You think about like what does the effect, just even looking in golf, the impact of creators that are filming a lot of golf content. You've got TGL, a brand new golf league, and then you've got Live, and you've got that's just one area within sport that is splintering pretty rapidly. But talk to me about how you as a brand think about staying ahead of all the different ways that especially younger generations are consuming content versus maybe the legacy ways of old.
Yeah. Well, it boils down to the demographics that we're trying to reach per sport, right? So ages, locations, interests, all that stuff. And that starts the segmentation ultimately. And so as, we know that a lot of the older demographics are probably still watching a lot of linear, right? Yep. Getting into streaming because of their kids, and so they have ESPN Plus and Peacock and all that stuff. That my dad in particular is like, can you change the thing so I can watch the NBA, right? Yep. So I need to do that for him, but we know who those people are, and now as we go down the generations, into our generation, let's say, and we're definitely well versed in it. But I think as we're realizing too, there's up and coming creators and YouTubers and TikTokers and whatever that we don't even know about, right? Yep. And so we need to do our research and make sure we're working with companies that understand those demographics really well and find a way to establish a proper marketing mix that balances the demographics and the interests and platforms and all that stuff, and is not so dead set on like, it's this channel and we're pumping everything in this channel and it's the only way forward. We know we have to sort of create as vast of a mix as possible and prioritize based on the sport in season, out of season, right? As I mentioned earlier on the panel, right now we're getting to the end of the NFL season. So our spend naturally is going to have to change to going All-Star next week. So more basketball focused, right? And then we'll get into the finals in basketball, and then the WNBA starts, and then volleyball and whatever. And so you're just constantly, like, when you look at the calendar, the non-sexy calendar that we have for just the internal team is a massive spreadsheet, and it's an eyesore. But it is what it is because we have to create across all those sports.
And every league is trying to be always on. It's not just when they're in season. They're trying to keep these people engaged well beyond that.
That was an insight years ago. I used to work at American Express, and that sort of clicked for me while we were there. A lot of the brands were spending just in season or just around All-Star or whatever, but the NBA found a way to make free agency special and the trade deadline and, it just never ends, the draft and combine, whatever, and it never ends. Yep. And so we don't have an infinite budget, so we do need to be picky and selective in the moments that we show up, but it's a good combination of what's your foundational spend from a media perspective, and then how do you find ways to amplify in certain areas. So Super Bowl is going to be amplification for us, and All-Star is going to be the same way, right? Key events and moments, player moments that are special for them. Caitlin Clark, as we mentioned. So that's sort of how we build the entire strategy, and it is incredibly variable. We have Caitlin today, there may be another player down the road or whatever it is, and so we have to just keep iterating based on the cards that we have. So
Caitlin Clark obviously has had a moment for quite a while now. I think it's amazing that she decided to forego the 3-point contest at NBA All-Star Weekend and really kind of focus on just making it about the WNBA. At EDO, we've tracked over these last couple of years the impact that she's had on not just viewership, which has been well documented, but the impact that she's had for the brands that she's lined up with, State Farm, Gatorade, and we've seen a great deal of increase in engagement for those brands. So she's clearly paying off from what we're seeing, for what we track. But to that effect of the new collaboration you guys have had with her, the basketballs, right? Like this kind of new kind of brand engagement you've had. What has that looked like for you in terms of the decision? Feels like an obvious one, but executing it and making it known, like how has that been to date kind of marketed, and what are you looking to do with it this year?
So I credit our full team because it does take an entire organization, like speaking for the Caitlin partnership. We sort of had a bit of like an air moment, if you get my Jordan reference with Caitlin, where, we had to go internally and say, like, how do I get a task force or whatever you want to call it set up so we can properly understand how long is it going to take to design product? How long is it going to take to get product in the market? What are the marketing stories? What's the budget that we have, the channels, et cetera? It's a full exercise. It's not just we decided to sign Caitlin and then we'll figure it out as we go. Like, you have to be strategic in those situations. And, the partnership came together fairly quickly, I would say. And so we tried to be as strategic as we could, but inevitably, especially with hard goods, the timelines to create hard goods are infinitely longer than soft goods, right? Designing a basketball and producing that and designing a T-shirt is very different, right? A lot of different, factors that go into it. So we had to take that into account. How can we get product in the market to satisfy the demand, right? There was incredible demand, and there still is for Caitlin product, but there's not a ton of licensed Caitlin product out there necessarily, right? She has a swath of partners, absolutely, but it's not like you can turn around and find Caitlin merch that's officially licensed everywhere. So we knew we had an incredible opportunity to be one of the first partners that are actually putting out product that people want and can get their hands on. So we sort of took a lot of pride in that, I would say, as being one of the first partners. And as we were designing products and figuring out the marketing campaigns and pushing them out in the right channels, they were selling out instantaneously. I mean, it was like we couldn't keep product on the shelf. And so that speaks to, one, her and her cultural pull. I say cultural because you say Caitlin Clark to anyone now and they know who that is. It could be your 75-year-old dad or grandpa, or it could be a 10-year-old who just started playing basketball. Like, they know who she is. And not everybody has that pull, right? So that's special. But also, I credit our teams for designing product that just pops and at different price points. We tried to make it as affordable for folks as possible. But then if you're looking for really premium product, we have that as well. So it does take a full army to design a plan outside of just marketing, product and commercial, working with retailers and our e-com team and the whole thing. So it is, it's been quite a feat, but we, I think, have the right gears in motion now, and the train is well oiled, I would say.
That's great.
Yeah.
And last question, as you think about the impact of storytelling around these kinds of cultural moments or around specific sports, as part of the overall marketing mix, as you think about this, how do you think about measuring the effectiveness for these kinds of larger, kinds of either collaborations or activations and ways that you tell your story?
Yeah. So there's going to be product in our subset that we know are going to sell no matter what, right? And so those, I think, we try to place on more of a conversion-focused, measurement model, let's say. But then there are products that, athlete products, et cetera, that we know they're going to sell, but we have to tell a little bit more of the story here. Like, everyone wants the Caitlin product, but how can we educate people about Caitlin, something about her that they didn't know, right? And so as we're developing our content plan and getting ready for a shoot and all those types of things, those are the types of things we're trying to extract from the partnership with her, because the product's going to be great. We're going to design it really nicely, but we also have to add a bit of the brand and the athlete storytelling into the mix there. So as we're thinking about that and how we measure it, the engagement, the reach, even some consideration, right, and more brand affinity sort of metrics come into play. And then you think about something like collaboration with another brand, right, with Kith or whoever that we design with. Again, higher price points, more quality materials and products that we know there's an appetite for, but those are going to be more limited in quantity. The intention there is to create this feeling of exclusivity and of desire, and like I want it, I need it, it's cool, it's hip, it's all that. And so those things aren't just you do them once and then you never do them again. You sort of have to keep that engine running. And those mostly are how are we attracting via this collaboration that we know is going to be really cool and special? How are we attracting these audiences and getting them into our funnel, right? And having them come visit us on Wilson.com. Maybe they shop for that product or they wanted that product and it happens to be sold out. Do they go and shop for anything else, right? Do they end up buying something ultimately? And that's the way we sort of gauge with our e-com team and measurement teams internally. What type of consumer is this? How do we then retarget them with something that they might be interested in?
Right. As a marketer, sometimes those things are out of your control, right?
Yeah.
Media can get you 90% of the way there.
You get them in, but yeah.
Can't always be just the point of sale.
It
right?
can't be that. And so, and that speaks to it too, right? For a collaborate, and that's why we do collaborations as well, is that they're an attractive, creative tool to get people in. And, they may be swayed by, oh, it's the price point or it's the availability is out of stock or whatever it is. But then what's that second action?
Right.
And that tells us a lot about the end consumer. So, depending on the product, depending on the quantities and materials and price points and all of that, sort of how we segment and then measure based on a lot of those things, whether it's conversion or engagement metrics or just broader consideration or brand affinity, loyalty, those types of things.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I know you got a busy week ahead.
Of course, yeah.
Best of luck with the rest of your engagements this week.
Thank you so much.
Happy to have you here.
Thank you for having me. Yep.
Thanks.